Well, for the first time in many weeks, Dolton trustees and Mayor Tiffany Henyard held a public meeting together, but not at Village Hall.
And Micah, tonight was a special board meeting because business has not gotten done at two previous meetings. So that's some progress there. But this meeting was not without its fair share of tension.
The drama surrounding Dolton, Illinois Tiffany Henyard keeps escalating. And let's just say it's like watching a reality TV show unfold in real time. Picture this, a mayor who makes well over $300,000 a year, yet is somehow facing eviction for not paying her rent. How does that even make sense? And it doesn't stop there. Henyard's antics don't just affect her personal life. They've seeped into her political decisions too, causing constant chaos in the village she's supposed to be leading. It's like she's playing her own version of a game where the rules don't apply to her. So buckle up, because we're diving deep into the bizarre and controversial world of Tiffany Henyard.
A Dolton home that she leased to Mayor Tiffany Henyard has filed eviction papers. She says Henyard has not paid her rent, and now she wants her.
Now, let's start with the eviction drama. This is where things get really juicy. Imagine being a landlord, expecting to get paid rent on time, only to find out your tenant is not just anyone, it's the mayor of your town, and she hasn't paid in months. That's exactly what happened to Jenna Hull, Henyard's landlord. After all, Henyard is the mayor, pulling in a hefty salary as both the mayor of Dolton and the supervisor of Thornton Township. But fast forward to now, and Hull is owed thousands in back rent, according to Hull. The last payment she received was in August, and after that, the rent checks just stopped coming. You'd think someone making that kind of money would have no trouble paying rent, but apparently, Henyard's priorities lie elsewhere. Hull had no choice but to file eviction papers in September, and she's been trying to serve them ever since. But get this, Henyard has been avoiding service like it's her full-time job. The Cook County Sheriff has been out multiple times trying to serve the papers. But every time, Henyard and her boyfriend seem to vanish into thin air. Hull even had to hire a special process server, adding more fees on top of the unpaid rent. It's a mess.
Now she's teasing a big announcement that she claims will result in some of her opponents being arrested and charged.
And it's not just about the money. Hull says she hasn't been able to gain access to the home for months. She gave Henyard and her boyfriend 48 hours notice to come and do some maintenance, but when she arrived, she found the locks had been changed and the garage code had been altered. Can you believe that? It's like they're treating the place like their own personal fortress, locking the actual owner out. Hull's understandably frustrated. And to add insult to injury, she says she once considered Henyard a friend. She even did campaign work for her. Now Hull just wants them out of her house.
Henyard's landlord showed up here to see her tenant in person after she says Henyard has been dodging both her and rent payments for months.
Let's pause here for a second. How does someone in a position of power, making more money than most people in her town, end up in a situation like this? It's not like we're talking about an exorbitant amount of rent. Hull said the rent was raised by $200 over the summer, bringing the total to $2,400 a month. For someone making over $300,000 a year, that should be pocket change. But instead, Henyard's boyfriend supposedly said they couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford it? Really? Fan reactions to this whole situation have been pouring in, and let us tell you, people are not holding back. One commenter asked, how many more months does this continue? Does no one face consequences anymore? It's a valid question. Henyard seems to be skating by without any real accountability, and it's infuriating to watch. Another fan pointed out, why doesn't she own a house? She owns a rental property that is condemned and got overpaid by Section 8 because the renter was staying in a hotel while Tiff was still getting the rent and then turns around and rents a house. There isn't one decision she makes that is sound. Ouch. But honestly, where's the lie?
South suburban politician Tiffany Henyard appears to have lost control of both governments.
This whole rent fiasco is just one part of the larger picture of Henyard's questionable behavior. It's almost like her personal life is a reflection of her political life. Both seem to be spiraling out of control. And speaking of her political life, let's talk about the police chief drama. If you thought the rent situation was messy, wait until you hear about this. So Henyard has been trying to appoint a new police chief for Dolton after her previous pick, Chief Lewis Lacey, was essentially ousted due to a vote of no confidence from the officers. You'd think she would have learned from that experience and been more careful with her next choice. But nope, she went ahead and appointed Ronald Burge Starr as the new police chief. The problem? Burge isn't even qualified to serve as an officer, let alone as the head of the department. The Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board sent a letter to Henyard informing her that Burge's law enforcement certification is inactive. He hasn't completed the required requalification shoots since 2021, and Dolton hasn't submitted the proper paperwork to get him reinstated. In other words, the guy can't legally carry a firearm or exercise any law enforcement authority right now. But that didn't stop Henyard from appointing him anyway. She's like, rules? What rules? And this isn't just some technicality. The board strongly urged Henyard to remove Burge from public service until they can determine if he's eligible for reactivation. But instead of listening to the experts, Henyard doubled down. After a chaotic village board meeting, a judge ruled in her favor, allowing Burge to serve as interim police chief for 30 days while they figure things out. Yep, you heard that right. Despite all the red flags, Burge is still in charge, at least for now.
Dolton Township tonight as another board meeting got canceled because of a lack of a quorum.
And that came after a disagreement about where to hold the meeting as trustees expressed concerns for their safety.
This brings us to another fan comment. There isn't one decision she makes that is sound. It's becoming increasingly clear that Henyard isn't exactly known for making well-thought-out choices. Whether it's her personal finances or her political appointments, there's a pattern of recklessness that's hard to ignore. And the people of Dolton are paying the price for it, both literally and figuratively. Let's not forget Henyard's appointment of Burge wasn't just a controversial decision, it was also illegal. The Dolton trustees have been fighting her on this, saying that she doesn't have the authority to make these appointments without their consent. But Henyard, she's not one to back down. Even when faced with legal challenges, she just keeps pushing forward, as if the rules don't apply to her. It's like she's on a power trip, and the people of Dolton are caught in the crossfire.
You are a clown. We will continue to speak out against wrongdoing.
Why won't you step down?
What's even more worrying is Henyard's track record when it comes to law enforcement. Remember Chief Lacey? That was another disaster. Lacey, who was appointed by Henyard, faced his own share of controversies, including accusations of unprofessionalism and even bankruptcy fraud charges. And now, with Burge in the hot seat, it feels like history is repeating itself. Henyard seems to have a knack for surrounding herself with people who are either unqualified or embroiled in legal trouble. It's like she's playing a game of political musical chairs, and each time, the person left standing is someone who probably shouldn't be in power. And it's not just the police department that's suffering under Henyard's leadership. Dolton as a whole is struggling. The village's finances are in shambles, with a multi-million-dollar deficit and mounting debt. Residents are frustrated, and rightfully so. They see their town sinking deeper into financial ruin while their mayor is off throwing lavish parties and making questionable decisions. One resident even compared her to a dictator, saying it's like living in Venezuela under Nicolas Maduro. That's a pretty harsh comparison, but when you look at the facts, it's not entirely unfounded.
Because all this point the finger to Tiffany or allow me, I'm over it. Now it's time for me.
Henyard's critics argue that she's more focused on her own image and personal gain than on the well-being of the community. She's been accused of blowing thousands of dollars in public funds on luxury travel and dining, turning the local police into her personal bodyguards, and even using taxpayer money to hire DJs for town meetings. Yes, you heard that right, DJs for town meetings. It's like she's trying to turn local politics into her own reality show. And honestly, at this point, who's surprised? But here's where it gets even more wild. Henyard has repeatedly promised to spill the tea on her opponents, claiming that they're the real villains in this story. She's accused them of a power and money grab. And during a 90-minute Facebook Live video, she even hinted that she would be seeking the arrest of some of her political enemies. Yep, she's threatening to have people arrested, but she hasn't provided any actual evidence of wrongdoing. It's all just vague accusations and promises to reveal the full truth at a later date. Sound familiar? It's like she's trying to deflect attention from her own scandals by pointing the finger at everyone else.
So now I have to pay a special process server in order to get them served, which is more fees for me.
And it's not the first time Henyard has tried to shift the narrative in her favor. She's gone on brief media tours, pitched podcasts, and even hired public relations teams to paint herself as the victim. But despite all her efforts, the scandals keep piling up, and the people of Dolton are starting to see through the facade. One fan summed it up perfectly. She's not going out without a fight. That's for sure. Henyard is clinging to her position of power with everything she's got, but at what cost? It's almost like she's living in her own bubble, completely disconnected from the reality of what's happening in Dolton. While the village is drowning in debt, Henyard is off filming music videos and taking selfies at public events. At a Valentine's Day dinner earlier this year, she was seen flanked by an entourage of police officers, including the deputy police chief, who acted more like her personal bodyguards than public servants. And let's not forget the Love on the Ice event, where Henyard shut out reporters by stationing police officers to block them from entering. It's like she's created her own little world where she's the star of the show, and everyone else is just a supporting character.
I'm just here because I'm at wit's end, and I fear that I'm going to go into foreclosure soon if I can't get this matter handled.
So, where does this all leave us? Henyard's time in office has been marked by scandal after scandal, and her behavior has raised serious questions about her ability to lead. From unpaid rent to illegal appointments, from extravagant spending to political power plays, Henyard's actions seem to be driven more by personal gain than by a desire to serve the people of Dolton. And yet, she remains in power, with no real consequences in sight. How long can this go on? Stay tuned, because something tells us we're in for a lot more twists and turns before this saga wraps up.